Welcome to Municipals or Foes at the crossroads of seriousness and silliness. This is a look at small town politics in rural Oklahoma. I'm your host, Mike Simulescu, with my co host, Lauren Fuller, and we're joined today by Speaker Charles McCall.
Yeah,
Welcome to
welcome,
our
Charles.
podcast,
Oh,
Charles.
thank you. Great to be with you.
We're
Charles, you have been in politics for a while now, and we are curious. Can you give our audience a little bit of your background, how you got into politics, but kind of where you're looking? Because you've got some big changes and big plans coming up.
Yeah, Lauren, thanks for the question. And first and foremost, I never saw myself, I never wanted to be involved in government. I never saw myself in policy or politics. And quite honestly, I just see it as public service. I'm a private sector business man in banking, CEO of Ameristate Bank. That's our family's bank with 7 locations, kind of in the southern Oklahoma, North Texas region. And public service is just something that um, I found myself uh, kind of, you know, thrusted into just by people in the community saying, "Hey, we we think you'll do a good job representing us, and nobody wants to do these, have these, mess with these positions, but we need leaders that'll look over things and help steer us in the right direction." So that's how I found myself there, and had some success at the municipal level, and had a nice run there. Was elected city councilman for Ward 4, and Atoka was for a year, and then the next year the mayor decided not to run for reelection. That seat was open and was encouraged again by people in the community to run. Had a good run, and then our state rep turned out in the area, and they're like, "Charles, you need to run and represent us at the state." So that's kind of my path, and it's not it's the service is uh, really, it's not an ambitious type of desire to serve. It's just one that, the way I view public service is, if you make it better for other people, then you're going to be fine. Everybody does well. It's in community banking, you don't do well unless you go make your customer successful. And I think politics or public service the same way. If they fail, you fail. If they do well, you do okay. And so just focus on others and try to make it better. Um, I've had some good people to work with along the way. Not one person,
So, how,
is the end all be all.
how long have you been in your current role?
Well, I'm Joe Q citizen right now, Lauren. I termed out of the legislature. They're getting ready to start another legislative session, so this will be the second session that I've not been a part of. So
Okay.
I'm just in the private sector, and so I did 8 years in
Mhm.
total at the municipal level, and I did 12 in the state legislature. 8 of those 12 was in the House as Speaker of the House.
Okay, so you've got a very extensive experience in politics at both the community level and the state level. And so now you are looking to run for governor. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm one of 7 that is seeking the governorship, and listen, I will credit my the time that I had at the municipal level and the state legislature, is I think have prepared me to be the most effective person for the governor's office, and that's what I'm interested in. Once again, is just focusing on making Oklahoma better for people, more opportunities, stronger communities, stronger families and business. That excites me, and I'm really confident that the next 8 years in Oklahoma is going to see some great opportunity, whether not just if you live in the metros, but if you live out in the rural parts of the state as well.
Well, you've done some pretty amazing things or had your hands in some amazing things in Oklahoma in the last 12 years. What are some of the biggest things that you've been involved in that you can tell our audience a little bit about that kind of gives them an understanding of what you stand for and what you represent, and what you are capable of accomplishing?
Well, Lauren, thank you for the question. And I kind of point, probably I lean towards the 8 years I was Speaker of the House. I really got to see the worst of times, and got to leave the best economic times ever. I really came into the speaker's office early in service, and members of the caucus said, "Hey, the economy's bad. We're in a bad economic slump. We've got no reserves. Your financial background, we think you need to be the Speaker of the House, and you've got long enough to serve that you can stabilize the House and make it a relevant and civil and stable body." But listen, when I came in, we had no reserves. Teachers hadn't had a pay raise in a decade. We had no money, but we knew what the people of the state wanted us to do. And we got that accomplished. And we didn't just do one teacher pay raise, we did three over a course of 6 years. We put 1.5 billion new recurring dollars in education funding over that 6 years. And that's to give you some perspective on that, Lauren and Mike. You've 1.5 billion in 6 years. That's as much money that had been put in education in the previous 23 years in state history. So really caught things up, and it's because of the economy. We changed the recipe. We did some tax reform and whatnot in our state, but then once our economy started taking off, it really exploded. Just for 6 to 7 years, it just set record after record after record years, all while we were lowering taxes on people of the state. And we went from a $6 billion appropriated budget to a $13.2 billion budget when I left, and we went from zero reserves to $5 billion in reserves. So it was an unprecedented run. I felt like we kind of caught a lot of things up in that 6 years that had been, deferred, and that's and I really think we're poised here in Oklahoma to really take some huge strides forward if we pick leaders that have the experience and the know-how. And I think this election cycle, people, they want somebody. I think they want a business person, somebody who understands the private sector and how business works, but they also somebody that kind of knows government as well and how it works. So I'm out there traveling all 77 counties, finding out that Oklahoma is a very large state geographically, and but it's been great to engage with people, leaders at the municipal level, the county level, state level, our church leaders, and just everyday walk of life people, and our ag communities, and our top four industries in the state. Number one, still oil and gas, it's energy. Number two is aerospace. Number three is agriculture. Number four is tourism. And so we've got a lot of opportunity, I think, in the near future. And quite honestly, the most opportunity that rural Oklahoma, I think, is seen in probably 50 to 75 years. So that's exciting.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you. Let me go back and ask you a question. So you talked about the education situation and the teachers. Now that we've starting to catch up, one of the things that I think everybody is concerned about is kind of where our rankings are in education, and how we've kind of dipped down over the last decade and a half. And what are your thoughts, briefly at least, on how to fix that issue? Because I know we always talk about Mississippi and other states, sort of southern states. I think Louisiana was another one that have had some significant increases in educational ability and attainment over the last decade. And I was just wondering, since you brought up, financing and education, I was wondering what your thoughts are to move it forward from, hey, we're fine, we're starting to finance appropriately. Where are we going from there?
Yeah, Mike, that's a great question, and that is the question everybody wants to talk about. No matter where I go across the state, especially when you talk about, well, the significant investment that we made into education, and they're like, well, why are we reading that? We got one group that says we're 50th in education outcomes. First and foremost, I believe we don't have a legislative branch of government problem when it comes to education in Oklahoma. I think the legislature has done its job. We have an executive branch government problem in education, and that's the branch of government that the governor leads. although the governor is not elected in the state of Oklahoma to run the State Department of Education, there's actually a statewide office holder, the state superintendent of education, that is. And we're one of the states where that's not appointed, that's elected. And but the next governor of the state, and I plan to lean in. Education has been and will always be the number one priority for me. We caught things up in the legislature, but we just need to focus on these outcomes, and we will move up, we will get better, but we have to stop the political theater and focus on where we are deficient and target resources there. That's what I know we can do it. We did it in roads and bridges in the state of Oklahoma. We used to be 48th in the country in road and bridge infrastructure as a state. We're now the 5th best in the country. How did we change that in Oklahoma? We put together an 8-year comprehensive road and bridge plan, stuck with the plan, and funded it year after year. And over the course of 15 years, you went from 48th to number 5. Mississippi has gone from 49th. They used to be behind us, and they're the 9th best in reading sufficiency scores in the country, and 15th overall. So we can do that too. We just have to focus on where we're deficient. And interestingly enough, if you look at the data, the legislature passed back when the Reading Sufficiency Act went into effect. I was in the legislature. I think it was 2013, 2014, but we put money into reading coaches for schools to have additional resources to help kids that were not on reading level to get on reading level. Our reading scores actually started climbing along with Mississippi's. And then we, a couple of years, we started falling off. Mississippi kept climbing. The difference was the state superintendent of education at that time diverted those resources to a different program. So I think getting back to answer your question specifically, I think getting back to targeting resources on reading and those 3rd grade reading tests is what will move the needle the quickest for us. And that's number one. There's a lot of things we need to do.
Sure.
We've got to continue to support our teachers, invest in our teachers. We used to be the lowest in the region teacher pay. Now we're one of the highest in the region. We've got to get the classroom environment situated on class size and behavior for teachers to be able to teach kids. We got to get parents engaged, where these teachers aren't having to be parents and counselors is in addition to being teachers. Get back to teaching phonetics, teaching the English language phonetically will really make a difference. So anyway, I'm excited about it, and I'm going to bring everybody together. We're going to get an Oklahoma plan, and then I'm going to ask the legislature to stick with it, and the people. Everybody's a stakeholder in education. Going to have to ask parents, hey, stick to the plan, do your part, and we will move up quite significantly, all pulling in the same direction.
And that's what we're hoping for, right? It's because I have school-age children go to public school, and I can see the deficits and the challenges. Most of my kids are pretty smart, and I always say smart kids always find a way. So, but it's the ones that need help, the average and below average kids that sometimes get lost, especially obviously the kids that really are below average or have special needs and things like that. Those guys are always the most vulnerable. But hopefully we can push forward on that. I'm glad you brought up though. We talked about roads and bridges. That's one of our favorite topics at the municipal level.
Absolutely.
And then tax reform. So that's one thing that I wanted to ask you about, because that seems to be a big issue, not only in municipalities, but I think there's a big discussion starting at the state level now, and has been at the state level for a long time. With municipalities, we're kind of all concentrated with sales tax mostly as far as collections, and other pretty much every other state has other avenues of revenue. We do have obviously utilities as well, so every place in Oklahoma uses utilities to subsidize their budget for our just general budget. But
Sure.
what are your thoughts on, because I was looking at your campaign, you seem to be a kind of a believer in getting rid of the income tax, zeroing out the income tax, right? And then I hear other people, they talk about getting rid of property taxes.
Yeah.
So then, like, we all like tax cuts, right? A lot of us pay a lot of taxes, and I like having tax cuts, but also we need some services and just basic things to be taken care of, especially if you're if the roads don't, there's potholes everywhere, if the water doesn't turn on when you turn the faucet on, and if the toilets don't flush, it's going to be hard to deal with those things. So my
Yes.
question is, when you look at the sort of going forward here towards funding, municipal funding or just state funding in general, how do you see maybe more funding somehow, not necessarily increase taxes, but maybe redistribution, a change in formula, whatever it is, for municipalities to kind of try to get from that 50th percent, that last place when it comes to bridges and roads and infrastructure, into a better situation? And then how do you reconcile that with maybe getting rid of property taxes or getting rid of income taxes, or how do you see that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's one, Mike and Lauren, that you really understand it and can grasp and see the effect if you have served in multiple arenas of public service. So from the municipal level to the county level to the state level, all of these taxes, when you adjust one, it can have a ramification or an implication in some other area. So you really have to understand by what happens when you change something over here in the recipe. I am a proponent of going to zero on the personal income tax. I'm a big believer in it. First of all, the states that outperform us per capita in this state all have one thing in common: zero personal income tax. But I've seen this play out in the state. Every time we cut the personal income tax, there would be a financial impact statement that would be attached to that bill, and they would come out and say, well, you cut the personal income tax 0.25%, that's $300 million. And that gives you the impression that, well, if you cut a quarter, you're going to lose $300 million for every quarter. That's a static impact number. The way that, there's at the state level, there's really two main classifications of tax revenue: productivity, which is your income tax, and then there are consumption taxes, and close to that are severance type taxes or excise taxes. But every time we cut the personal income tax on productivity, we didn't see $300 million go away. The money's still there. You just moved it from one pocket to the next. The government decided just to let the people keep it, but the people spent the money. And every time they spent that extra dollar that they had, and some people will say, well, it's only $200 for me. Just don't cut it. Just let the state keep it. It's not that much money to me, but it's $300 million total for every quarter cut to the people of the state of Oklahoma. And they're going to spend it, and they do spend it. And that dollar bounces around the economy here in the state, and it throws off consumption taxes, sales tax to the city. It'll throw off some sales tax to the county and to the state of Oklahoma. Every time we cut the personal income tax, state revenues ended up being higher the next year. Why? Because people spent the money, stimulated the economy. You got the multiplier effect. That's how we went from a $6 billion in revenue budget, and 8 years later to 13.2. So if we're stepping that rate down as the economy continues to perform, it's really a stimulus to the economy, and you see more money come back. Now, if you eliminate a consumption tax, they act completely different. like the grocery tax, we eliminated the state grocery tax in Oklahoma, which is important for where we live, because you can drive right across the Red River into Texas and pay zero taxation on groceries. But when we eliminated that $450 million consumption tax at the state level, that money will never come back to the state. You severed a true pathway of revenue back to the state. So that's why I believe that we can go to zero over time without harming core services. And the state of Oklahoma, it has and will continue to have to provide funding to the Oklahoma Water Resources Board, so municipalities and rural water districts can have access to funds to leverage and match to grow their water infrastructure systems. I mean, with being the 10th fastest growing state in the nation, the municipalities are faced with these infrastructure costs of trying to keep up with the growth, with price escalations, with inflation. And we've got to have that infrastructure, and the state's going to have to make sure that the economy is doing well so it can help augment funding to those municipalities so they can continue and grow. Here in Atoka County, in one of our rural water districts, you can't get a tap. If you're building out in the county in that area, their systems are at capacity. They can't bring on another client. So we're going to have resources, and the state needs to be performing at a very high level. But if we will have the resources to help fund and keep up with that growth, so we don't outrun our infrastructure.
Okay. No, that seems like a good answer. Let me ask you what about property taxes?
Yeah, property tax is totally different. You can change. It's real easy for somebody at the state level to talk about, doing away with property tax, or because not a cent of ad valorem goes to the state. It all goes to the counties, 100% of it. 20% of it, of what's collected in each county on ad valorem, goes to fund county government. The other 80% is spoken for by the school districts, the public schools in that county. And so if you do away with it, and by the way, ad valorem is in the state's constitution. The governor and the legislature, there's very few things that they can do with ad valorem. It has to go to a vote of the people. But I'm a proponent of capping ad valorem increases on your homestead once you reach the age of 62. I just think the state of Texas does it at 65. We have a form of it in Oklahoma currently. At age 65, you can apply for an exemption and a waiver based upon income. But I think we should just, at 62, at least freeze your property tax on your home. It can't go any higher. And I think you could do that without harming county governments and schools. But this talk, but to talk about ad valorem, and I get it. I don't think ad valorem is a fair tax, quite honestly. I mean, you buy a piece of property, you build a house on it, you continue to pour money into that house to replace the roof and keep it painted, and you're constantly making these investments into it, and then you pay a tax that's for the privilege of just owning it and holding it. And I get the argument, but if you're going to do away with ad valorem tax, you will have to replace it with some other form of revenue, because the counties are already they operate very thinly, and then public schools would be impacted as well. So you got to think through all of these things. I mean, some things are great political talking points, But once again, you change something in the formula, it'll have implications.
Well, one of the things that I'm sorry I apologize that it cut you off there. That they were talking about. I think they want to do a ballot initiative, right? Or potentially to get rid of the ad valorem in the Constitution completely and send it back to the legislature. Is kind of what it sounded like, and then potentially replace that with a consumption tax on goods and services. Pretty much, it sounded like anything you buy is kind of what the thought process was. And one of the things in southeastern Oklahoma that could be a problem is if you increase the taxes so much on certain goods and services, they could just drive over the Red River and buy stuff there. And it's not a far drive because we have new roads that take you there really fast. So that's the only concern I have, is that I think the income tax answer is a better one for sure, because at least it sort of keeps the money here in the state, as opposed to the other one is a little bit more risky from at least where we are. In Tulsa and Oklahoma City, it probably don't matter because they're kind of landlocked. Nobody's driving to Arkansas or to Kansas from there to shop.
That's true, and they have more robust economies than the areas outside. They have a different set of challenges, though. I don't want to discount that, but it's I just believe in a consumption-based economy approach. I think don't tax productivity at all. I mean, create the environment where people want to work more, be more productive, earn more, find creative ways to earn more. And then, hopefully everybody becomes millionaires, and then they go buy their expensive toys. And then, all these consumption taxes, flow based upon how they spend money. And, and I think that's the best driver for our economy. But it really is we have several counties across the state, and there's not a single one of them that I want to point out or put on the spot. But what's happened over the last 4 years is we've seen finally inflation broke this year, but the 4 years prior to that, we saw the biggest increase in inflation in 40 years. And the state, we were cutting taxes and actually trying to push money back to people to help them combat the inflation. That's why the grocery tax was eliminated, to try to make the dollar go further at the grocery store for basic goods and necessities. But some of the counties kept using the 3% escalator on the ad valorem side. The law doesn't say you have to raise it 3%. It just says you may raise it up to 3% a year. And we had some counties that were doing that year after year, just kind of automatically. And things got so tough for people. And some of our retirees and seniors they lost their homes because they just couldn't pay their taxes. And that's why I think it's so important to have some boundaries on it. And at 62, where you're thinking about retiring, you need to have certainty on what those costs are going to be. We should freeze it. I don't think it'll negatively impact things, and it'll help Oklahomans kind of help them retire when they want to and stay retired, hopefully more so than today.
Well, Charles, we've talked about some interesting topics. We've talked about taxes. We've talked about education. What in your upcoming campaign is another pressing issue that you're looking to address and communicate to the public?
Well, one of the biggest things that we've been dealing with and will continue to deal with is since the people of the state legalized marijuana in this state, we have had a lot of nefarious activity that has come into our state. We have foreign-owned ownership of land in Oklahoma, which our Constitution prohibits. One of the things and I started to work on this while I was the speaker, but I'm very adamant about identifying all the foreign-owned land, and even that which is held by straw buyers that are Oklahomans, but it's for the purpose of holding for illegal and cartel type of utilizations for nefarious purposes. I'm going to find it all and I'm going to seize it, and we'll auction that stuff back off to Oklahomans that want to buy it on the county courthouse steps, and we're going to get all these bad actors out of our state.
Well, I think that's a good topic to be addressing, because we've all seen the marijuana industry explode in Oklahoma, and we've seen what the repercussions in Colorado, and we're starting to see some of those here. So I know we're all anxious to kind of see how you address that, or propose to address it.
Yeah, and law enforcement's done a great job. I want to brag on the sheriffs and Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics. Those guys are kind of the tip of the spear when it comes to this illegal marijuana grows and all the human trafficking that's been taking place in the state. From that, grow licenses got as high as 9,000, over 9,000 at one time. Early on, they're now down to below 1,700, and they still think there's probably 1,000 more that aren't legitimate. They expect to be below 700. They've really done a great job, even though we passed the laws in the legislature and we funded those agencies to go do things. They really deserve the credit, not nobody else who's trying to take credit. The credit should be with the sheriffs and Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics.
Yeah, it was a big free for all at the beginning, I remember, and we're still feeling some of the ramifications of that.
Yeah, it was pure. It was a pure.
That was passed.
Yeah, it was a free market approach here in Oklahoma for sure.
Yeah. So we learned a little bit from that, at least, to kind of see how that. Let me ask you a question. One thing here in southeastern Oklahoma, I mean, a lot, at least in the eastern part of the state also, but we've had the current governor has had a lot of sort of, I don't know, disagreements, if you'd like to say, or with the tribes. And then, so,
yes, he has.
for lack of a better word, it's been kind of a sort of a animosity, or I don't know, they're not really working together in a lot of respects. And I was wondering if you could comment as far as your, campaign and potentially future governorship. How do you approach that relationship? Because I know you've obviously had some relationship based on where you are and have been in the statehouse and where you're located. So I was just wondering if you can comment on that and see how you think you're going to approach things differently with the tribes compared to what the current governor has done.
And Mike, I see, there's 39 federally recognized tribes in Oklahoma. There's the big five civilized tribes. And then, there's roughly 34 others here in Oklahoma. I mean, and this is home for them and for their governments. And quite honestly, it's the biggest opportunity for Oklahoma economically is to work with the tribal nations. Chief Batten and the Choctaw Nation is excellent. I got to work with Choctaw Nation when I was a mayor, and Choctaw Nation when I was also as state rep and Speaker of the House. Great leadership to work with. Want great things for Oklahoma, and they're and within their reservation as well. Chickasaws, my House district spanned the Chickasaw Nation as well. Governor Anatubby, an incredible leader as well, and he has been around long enough to see everything and experience a lot of Oklahoma history. And I just think it's a great opportunity to work together. The tribal nations, they get their own. We get federal funds that come back to the state of Oklahoma, but the tribes get a different set of monies that come back to Oklahoma from the federal government as well. And that's education money, that's healthcare monies, and that's road and bridge money. And to the greatest extent that we're working together, we can leverage those dollars together and take care of infrastructure in the state of Oklahoma much more efficiently and effectively than we can individually. And I think it's a big opportunity, and I'm looking forward to working with them. We've always had a great relationship. We'll continue Two, I do think you also you have to, everybody needs to also understand that whether it's the governor of the state of Oklahoma or it's the chief or governor of a tribal nation, each one of those leaders is elected by a constituency, and the leaders can have they need to have a good working relationship. But even having a good working relationship doesn't mean that everything that you want to do gets done, because the constituencies sometimes, just aren't in agreement. They don't want their leader to do that. So everybody needs to realize that. I mean, there might be something that the tribes want to get done that the governor is just like, hey, I can't get that. I can't. My constituencies aren't going to accept that, and that happens, and that's okay. But you shouldn't let those things keep you from not doing the things that you can agree on. And there are I think a lot of opportunities working together with the tribal nations really to advance this state forward. And that's going to be my intent. I'm not going to rubber stamp anything unless I feel like it's a good deal for all Oklahomans. And I would also expect that the tribal leaders who are elected as well would take the same approach. So you just got to get in there and have a good relationship and talk, communicate, find what you can get done, do that. And even the toughest things, I've seen it in education, school freedom in the state of Oklahoma. I mean, now you get to choose where your child goes to school, and that's fair, because you know how your child's going to learn and where they're going to learn the best. But that took years to come together, to find a way that you didn't hurt public schools, and you didn't trample on homeschool freedom and the people who own school and go to private school or a Christian school, faith-based school. But you keep talking, you eventually, your constituencies want you to get it done. They want the fighting to stop. They want you to get an agreement. And if you have a good working relationship, you can. And and that's how I would approach the tribal leaders. They're friends, and I'm going to be respectful of their governments and their sovereignty granted by the federal government. And we'll get in there and make things as great for everybody in the state of Oklahoma.
Well, as we can tell, politics touches a lot of things, and we could talk all night long about all of the different aspects of what you could campaign on, what you support, what you don't support. But we can't keep you all night. We'd love to talk all night, Charles, but we need to be respectful of your time. So thank you so much for coming on, telling us a little bit about what you've been involved in, your stances on things, your perspectives. We appreciate you. And we love that you're a local Southeastern Oklahoma boy who knows our area of the state. And we appreciate you being a voice for us politically in this region of the state. Mike, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Charles, just one other thing before you go. We do appreciate your time and coming on. Like I said, we've met you a couple of times, and we do appreciate taking your time talking to us here. Tell us for your campaign for governor. Tell us how people can read more about you, get a hold of you, when the primary is, and all that good stuff. And then we'll leave that at that.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Everybody can find me online. Website is McCallforoklahoma.com, and then from there you can find all of our social. We are also on all social media platforms. Most recently, we're on TikTok now. Now that there's a North America owner of TikTok, we are officially participating in that platform as well. But you could search for McCall for governor or on the social media platforms and find us there. We'd love for you to follow us. It's going to be a really exciting campaign, a lot of issues, and we love the engagement, and just so people are informed and they can give us their input and ideas. I would love to go and sit down with all 4 million people in the state. but that's going to be really hard to do in 6 months. But so follow us, and from the website, you can you can contact me directly. You can contact any of our campaign staff, but we would love to hear from you, because really what I'm focused on is being a governor for the state of all Oklahomans, and a governor that will expect to get big things done for the people, and put the people first, and making sure government is there to serve them.
And then when's your primary?
The primary is going to be June the 16th, so not that far away. There's 7 candidates just on the Republican ticket alone, and so it's likely going to be a runoff. That runoff would be in August, and then the general elections in November. So it should be an exciting 2026 politically.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, Charles.
Well, thank you. Great to see you both.
Best of luck,
and best of luck to you. Best wishes in your endeavors. Thank you for pouring into your communities and your public service as well.
We appreciate you, Charles. Thank you.
Thank you.